So, first of all, last week one of my mates actually said to me, "Oh, Crumblan, your game dev series is fine, it's great, but I'd love to see you actually doing the work in progress instead of just recapping it all at the end of the week." And I thought, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I think it would be a lot more entertaining visually, and also you'd probably take a lot more from it if you actually watched me during the process. So, here we are. Now, I did post that short on Monday about spinning the wheel and deciding the genre for the game we were going to make on this channel. But obviously, a genre is not enough to make a game. So we're going to have to wait for a few spins first before I can even start the design process. But I figured what I can do is I can show you all how I approach game design in the first place while we're waiting. And what better application to apply this design to than Creep Dodge? So, for those of you who haven't seen the first two episodes, this is the game that the Godot user manual instructs you through creating as a 2D sort of, proof of concept, or more accurately, like, test of your knowledge. And it's really good. It's a neat little game. If I run through it really quickly here for you, you just run around as this little guy dodging what are essentially called creeps. And if you want to know how the game kind of works at a base level, go back and watch the second episode, Dodge Creep. Nope, Creep Dodge. We're going to take a look at Creep Dodge, and we're going to look at the ways it can be improved. Because that's what I learnt to do, really, in university, is it was a course in games design. I'm the game designer. I'm the one who designs. So today we're going to take a look at Creep Dodge. And we're going to see how I can improve it from a player experience standpoint. And the absolute best way to find out this information is to have it be play tested. And that's what I've gone and done. I've had a few of my friends play through it, have a go at it, and I have gotten some feedback. So, the most important thing is to determine whether your feedback is feedback that you can use to make the game better, or if it's feedback that comes as a result of just player preference. And it's important to take player preference into account, of course, but some player preference can break the way the game works in the first place. So, for example, I had one of my players kind of sit at the top end of the screen and just let everything come running around them, which is a perfectly fine tactic. But when they wanted to sit somewhere up like here, for example, and let everything flow past, because of the way the game works, and hopefully it does so soon there, a creep spawned in right next to them, giving them no chance to be able to dodge. Now, if we look at that critically, you could say to yourself, well, it disincentivizes. Is that a word? Disincentivize. Third person disincentivizes. Yes, it disincentivizes just sitting in a corner. It forces the player to engage if they don't want that risk to happen. However, if a player is trying to play properly during Creep Dodge by dodging creeps and they're running, let's say, along the side of the screen and a creep spawns right on top of them, that is unfair. So how do you strike that balance? How do you let the players who are engaging with the game properly, how do you let them know that a creep is coming their way before it gets there, but in such a way that the players who are just cheesing it in a corner can't just continue to cheese it in a corner non-stop? And I think the kind of best way to do that is one of a few things. So, first of all, there has to be some kind of on-screen indicator to solve the problem that a creep is coming your way. So, I come to my spreadsheet and I figure out, okay, well, let's throw down the idea. So we want a creep incoming warning, and we'll need to just kind of dissect how we want that to happen. So, to do. Well, obviously, we need to figure out what the actual warning looks like and create it. So, let's see, can I assign this? Task, bug, and asset. So we'll call this one an asset, because the thing that's going to show up on screen, anything in a game really that is visual or not a part of programming, is called an asset. So I think if that makes the most sense. Having an icon pop up, well, it might be an arrow pointing in the direction the creep will go. That might be giving away too much information to the player. So maybe it is just simply like your classic warning sign in the triangle with a little exclamation mark. That's something we'll play around with in the design process. We would implement one variant, have someone play through it, and if they liked it, great. If not, back to the drawing board, figure out what works well. So we need that incoming warning icon. Next, let's see here. Would it have a sound associated with it? A sound is another way to convey information after all. So it could be the image and a sound. It could be an alarm. It could be like a little ding sound. It could be like a building sound of some kind. Like not like a building as a structure, but like a sound that builds in volume or intensity as the creep comes closer to spawning. Perfect. So we'll have an image come up. We'll have a sound play. Now, we need it to actually be implemented through programming. So that is a task. So a creep's going to spawn in. How am I going to show this image and play this sound? Where am I going to play it relevant to where the creep is spawning? Am I going to read the direction the creep's going, go a certain distance along that projected path and place the picture there? Am I going to maybe draw a circle outwards from where the creep spawns, have a line be drawn in the direction of the player and spawn the image where that drawn line and that drawn circle intersect? There's so many different ways you can do it, and I don't have enough experience as a programmer to know which way is the most efficient, so I'm going to need to play around with it. So, a warning icon, a warning sound, and the implementation of the system itself. What needs to be done after that? The most important part. Playtest, warning, system. Playtest. Perfect. It's gone. See you later, buddy. Where is it going? Yeah, I want this one. Do I have to enter? Ah, right. God forbid I forget to hit enter. So, these are all to do. What's the first thing I should do? Depends on what I'm feeling on the day. And you know what? Today, I think we go straight into finding that icon. So we drag it across and off we go. This is GIMP. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically free Photoshop. And it's also the equivalent of Blender to Maya, which is just really all a roundabout way of saying it's open source. So it's worked on by the community, more or less. Let's make up our warning image. Now, if I was making something a little more complicated than just a thing that warns, I'd pull up some images, I'd put together a mood board, get a feeling for what it is I'm trying to make up, and then I would go ahead and make it, especially if it's a model or a sprite or something like that. But for something as simple as a warning image, I'm just going to play around in GIMP. Creep Dodge has a lot of smooth angles. So this character is very smooth, the creeps are all very smooth. The font has a little bit of sharpness to it. That's just because it's a font. But a lot of the stuff in Creep Dodge is very smooth, and I want to keep to that style. I think that is a pretty good icon. It looks very obvious, different from the background. It doesn't tell the player which direction the creep's going, which I think would give away too much information. It's simply a warning of like, hey, one's going to spawn from here soon. Don't be near it. I think that will work just nice. So, with the incoming warning icon done, I can slap it over here. Now, actually, you know what? Technically, it's not done, is it? Because I still have to do the play testing to know if it works and it doesn't need to be altered. So I need an extra category called awaiting approval. Man, I hope that's how approval's spelt. Hey, I remember English. Let's go. Awaiting approval. And we want this here before done. So the incoming warning icon is awaiting approval. Awesome. Now, let's move on to the audio next, because that way I can just get it all put together in the system straight away. In terms of audio, I have zero, like a negative perhaps even. Actually, I can't say negative. I have zero experience with creating audio. I don't even know programs that do it other than like GarageBand on iOS that I've seen when I go to the Apple store. So I have no experience creating audio, which means I either have to outsource that kind of thing, learn how to do it, or just find one on the internet. And, well, I ain't outsourcing. And I think it would be far too big a side tangent to go and learn how to do it myself. When it comes to making music for video games, hell yeah, I'm gonna learn how to do that stuff. I'm so excited for that. But for now, today, let's just find a free asset somewhere online that I can use. Okay, I've wandered to the ever-useful world of Pixabay. There were a couple here where I had a good laugh at that I was like, that would be pretty good. Like, I've got to straight up like...
Warning.
But, you know, we do want it to actually, like, you know, make sense. So I've landed on, where was it? This one here, Warning Sound by freesound_community. I like this one because if you listen along, it sounds round. I know that might be weird, but it sounds round. And like I said, the look and feel of Creep Dodge is very rounded and soft. So I think that's going to be very suitable a sound for our warning. So we've landed on this one. On that note, it's been downloaded and we can officially move warning audio to awaiting approval. Now comes the actual hard part, the part that will no doubt take me hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, or it might be able to be done in but a few minutes. It is time to make the warning system. All right, folks, this is where the magic happens. This is the behind the scenes of Creep Dodge. So it's been, I think, about 2-ish weeks since I was last here. And that means it's going to take me just a little bit to get familiar with everything again. But I'll show you through the project files. Let me remove the packet of chips in front of my screen so that I might see it a bit easier. So you can see here we've got all of the different assets and sort of bits you can put into the sprite sheets. You've got the game over sound, you've got house in a forest loop, which is that sound you can hear playing in the background. But I've already added the warning icon. So if I drag this in, boom. Beginner mistake number 2. I have exported the background with the icon. So if I drag this in now, you can see it is a floating thing. It drops a cast shadow, but it doesn't drop it over UI elements. It does drop it over the background, which is what we want. It's going to place nicely. We don't want it to be bigger than the player. In reality, yeah, it would probably be about this big. Like if the creep was going to spawn here along this path, we would have that, you know, so let's say we go with the circle technique. The circle gets drawn. Let's say the player's down here. So it would draw the circle, it would draw the line, and it would go where they intersect here. The creep, by the way, does not target where the player is when it comes on screen. It chooses a variable angle based off of where it has spawned and goes randomly. So this isn't going to tell the player where the creep is. It's just going to tell the player where the creep is spawning from their location, which I am starting to like that idea a little bit better. So yes, that's going to work very nicely, I feel. And if I just drop that in without doing much more else and hit play, it's just going to stay there at the top. It's not going to go away. Man, yeah, this is going to be interesting to implement. I'm going to have to look across a few different scripts. I'm going to have to refamiliarize myself. And I have the sinking suspicion I didn't leave comments on my code. Oh, here's where the fun begins. Do not expect me to run you through what each of these lines of code mean, because if I'm going to be completely honest with you, that would be a long video. But if you want to pause and have a look, feel free. But what we're looking for, yes, we have got 4 scripts. Which I could have accessed very easily if I'd remembered there is a script toggle. Oh boy, I need to eat. There's 2 ways I think I could do this. I could tell the icon everything it needs to do here, or like I've got, you know, the player set up as its own thing and the enemy in the HUD, I could set up an additional scene, which is the icon. I could program into the icon when you exist, blink twice and die, which sounds terrible, but I guess destroy yourself. And then all I would have to do here in the HUD script is spawn it in. I could do it either way, and I'm not too sure which way to do it. And before I do it, I might get some lunch, because my stomach is killing me. Okay, we are back amongst it. So, first things first, it's time to decide whether I make it a scene, or I just program everything into here. Yeah. We're gonna make it its own scene. I'm sure I can just drag it over. Then destroy the instantiated scene after X time has elapsed. That's what we want to do in this script. So how do I do it? Well, I would presume, given that show, where is it? It's just here. Create property path. Can I just take that into the script? Visible. Alright, what I was forgetting, and I did do this. I did this like with in the enemy script. It's in here, Q_free. That's what I want to do. So in here we go Q_free, and that will delete this thing once it has been created. So what I'm going to do to test this out is we're going to go to the main scene, and I'm going to drag basically my created scene in, which should be hiding somewhere down here. This. If I drag this in, there it is there. If I hit play, it should basically... Let's see if it works. Okay, it definitely blinked away. That definitely happened for sure. But I don't think it did it more than once. So what I'm going to have to do is, because it went so quick, technically in a second, it would blink on, off. Oh, no, you know what it is? I forgot to set the timers. I forgot to set the timer to shown. That's a second. So timer to hidden's 0.35. Then let's say we do another 3.5 wait. Or, you know what? It eradicated it. It deleted it after a second. Okay, I know what we have to do. 0.35 times 4. 3, 6, 9, 12, 5, 10, 15, 20. That's 1.4 seconds. So what we'll do is we'll set this to 1.5. That's 0.35. That's 0.35. Save. Back to the main. Play. On, off. On, off. On, off. On, off. Okay. Isn't that it? So that's now working perfectly. On, off. On, off. So, curiously enough, the eradication happened, but I guess not quick enough to get rid of this for good. Like, you can see that the blinking is working perfectly. I feel like that is blinking too long. This is interesting though. Let's play around with it a bit more. So back to warning icon. So the timer to hidden, 0.35. Timer to shown, 0.35. Timer to eradication, 1.5. If I get it precise, 0.35 is 0.7 for 2. So it's 1.4 would eradicate it. Now that I've done that, is that what we're after? Play. No, it's coming back. So something isn't happening in the right order. In a situation like this, we're going to add some little stuff in. Okay, now that we've done that, let's head back to the main scene and see what happens. Hiding icon, showing icon, hiding icon, showing icon, showing icon. Now, as we can see, that's not what we want. So something is happening. Something very, very interesting is happening. So let's analyze it. Let's head back to the script and analyze it and see what might be going on. I'm back. I completely forgot to hit recording. I decided I'm going to actually have the audio play from the warning icon. So, because just why not, right? So I want warning sound, which I have incorporated into the warning icon node. Warning sound, same thing we saw before. Warning sound dot play. And that should play the warning sound when it first starts. But I also want it to start up again when it's shown. So that's when it would go here. Timer to hidden start. That starts, it's set visible, we play the sound once more. No reason to retype that, why not? Let's see if that works as intended. Oh my god, and it works so well! One more time for the audience. Perfect. That is exactly what we want. So, now that that's all set up, it really is just about finding out where we want to place it.
how do I do this? Okay. Oh, this is math. We're getting into vector math here, which I do need to do more studying of. I think I have a page of it open in my browser. I will double check it. But what we need to do is, you know what? We're bringing up paint. I need this in my head. So we've got the mob spawn point, which will mob spawn point. Let's say the player is down here, right? We've got the direction, which we have got written down as warning direction, right? So we've got warning direction, and then we have this thing, which hasn't been spawned in yet. What we want to do is spawn this somewhere along this line, this direction from this point toward the player. So, oh man, this is like fucking high school math. This is crazy. So I want to get somewhere along this line. I'm genuinely gonna have to do high school math. I'm genuinely gonna have to do high school math for this. I want the warning sign to spawn. So, fuck me. Distance. Oh my god. Okay. How am I gonna do this shit? Oh boy. Let's start playing around. Christ, I've been recording fucking head scratching for 57 minutes, and that's been pausing in between. Oh. My God. It is 24 hours later, and during that time, I have spent countless hours banging my head against this problem. And there was so many different things causing the problem, but the main thing is how I had the actual warning icon itself set up. So originally, and it has been that long ago, I don't quite remember, I believe I had it under a control node, which is a part of a UI element. And then I tried to change it and had the kind of parent node be set to a texture rectangle, which was also within the UI elements. Then I finally changed it over to a 2D node and set the image as a child of that to a sprite. And when I did that, I could then accurately apply position changes to the image. So now, when I play the game, it sets it correctly to where it's meant to be. I then got so carried away with the fact I'd finally fixed it, and this was only a few hours ago, by the way, I spent a long time trying to fix it, that I started putting in the systems in play for determining when it should be put in the first place, right? So I have moved the main script around a fair bit just to make it a little more clean and simplified. So I have moved what spawns the mobs and gives them their direction and their speed out of the function that activates when the mob spawn timer runs out. I've put them in their own function, and I've had the timer instead activate this function with the mob scene itself being put into it. It then takes the mob scene, gives it its location, its spawn point, its rotation, and its velocity. What we then do is we find the distance to the player from the mob. We compare that distance to a preset distance that I set back in the main scene, which is just here, minimum distance for danger, in this case 200. I can play around with that figure. That's why it's changeable from out of script, so I can get it balanced right. And if the player is too close, it will then spawn a warning with this function here, which this is what I was working on last I was recording, I'm positive. I'm now using a lerp function. Before I was trying to minus vectors and find the distances and get a certain point along them. This is so much easier. It's also not quite as pinpoint accurate as I wanted. I think yesterday I was talking about casting a circle around the mob, casting a line out from the mob to the player and where they intersect, placing it there. What this is instead doing is it's basically doing a linear interpolation, which is a fancy way of saying it's drawing a line from this line to this line, and then this warning distance here is how far along that line I want to place the picture. Every time a monster spawns, if the player's up here and a monster spawning in down here, the linear interpolation, based off of the distance here I set it at, basically if I set it at 20%, right, it'll spawn here. Let's actually make that a different color for the sake of it. Let's make it yellow. It'll spawn here, right, like 20% along. But if the player is like here, then it would spawn 20% along this distance, which is going to be like here. So you can see it's not always going to be the same distance away from the enemy, regardless of how close the player is, which is kind of what I originally wanted it to do. But for now, this will do. I can kind of refine it a bit later. Then what it does is I've given the main scene a 2D marker, which is how we start the player on the same position every time. It's a 2D marker that's on the scene. So I've put a 2D marker in the scene called warning pause. What I do is I set the position of that marker to the direction decided here with the lerp. I then instantiate the warning icon scene. So I create a copy of this to go into here. I then set the global position of that warning scene to be the same position as this warning pause. And then I create it. And now it places it down every time exactly where this pause is. And where that pause is always, let's say it is 20% along of a line between where the monster spawns and the player, every time without failure. And it's on screen, and it plays the sound, and it works to make sure that the distance to the player from the monster is close enough to warrant warning them. If it is, it activates the warning spawn, which I ran you through just before. It sets a variable mob to the same as like the one up here, because what I found is when I just spawned in a monster a few seconds later, it didn't have any of the information that teaches it where to go, how fast to go there, and the limits for going there, which is why I moved it all into its own function. So what I do is I copy the information for the mob that would have spawned if the player wasn't too close for a warning. I set it to its own little variable so it can be called later, and I start a timer to delay how long the monster spawns, and that timer is long enough for the warning to flash twice, play the sound twice as intended, then when the timer runs out, it activates this function, which then spawns the mob whose information we saved up here. I know. Insane. And it's probably really quite simple and straightforward to some veteran programmers. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is actually kind of like a Chad move from me. So, they spawn in, no problem. If I go close to a wall, there we go. Now here's where you'll begin to see the issue. As long as there's only one, it will delay spawn the monster, giving me enough time to move away, right? But if more than one need to be delayed, see how the first one didn't delay? Because the second timer that got started made it so that the first timer could never finish. So that original monster that the alarm goes off for doesn't spawn. Instead, the new timer that started because I'm close to another spawn point is the one that spawns. And that can technically chain infinitely. If I ran around the screen and somehow miraculously every monster that spawned was within the danger zone, a monster would never spawn. So that is what I need to fix next, and my brain is fried for the week, so that is something I'm going to tackle next week. I've already got an idea of how I can do it. I think I'll be using a sort of array list that can store the information of what mobs need to be spawned, and then spawn them as they're required. Or maybe I'll write a timer in function instead of having it be a node. And when those independent timers in the code expire, they can spawn their independent mobs. I still think there would need to be an array list for what mobs get spawned when. But I'm not going to give it any more thought. I'm going to leave it there for this week.